Hi, good evening. Welcome to the September 17th School Board Work Session. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I didn't stand, I don't think I would remember that, yeah.
Sitting down?
I don't think I did do that.
Maybe we'll have a conference today.
Try that.
In any event, let's see, it's by way of announcements. And here are we met in executive session on August 27th, 2013, directly after our school board meeting last month, where we had a discussion on a personnel issue. Attendance, all board members are in attendance with the exception of Jim Phillips. Moving on, scheduled speakers and presentations, Dr. Miller.
With one presentation, we wanted to give a public presentation to you and the public of the tentative collective bargaining agreement between the school district and the Methacton Education Association. I'm going to ask Bob and Stuart to do that. And I'll sit back and evaluate this.
Pretty nice place to be, huh?
No pressure.
You going to be my wingman?
Yes.
Very good. As Dr. Miller said, we're going to present to you the tentative agreement. This was probably one of the best kept secrets over the summer that I can imagine. It was very well kept by both sides, but there was a 4-year agreement agreed to that will expire on the 30th of June in 2017. There were 2 major language changes that really impact the contract. The first was the definition of long-term substitutes within the contract. Prior to, in the last contract, there was a limit of 45 days. Once that threshold was crossed by a substitute, they were considered a long-term substitute under the contract. They were within the bargaining unit. That has changed to a teacher that is working in the same position for 1 year and 1 day. Another major change were tuition reimbursement caps. We reduced the current cap that's in the contract from $475,000 to $230,000 over the life of the contract. Now, the implications for these were substantial. When we now look at all of our substitutes, virtually all our substitutes are going to be hired by and monitored by Substitute Teacher Service. All the substitutes that we do hire that reach that same 45-day threshold are going to receive increase in pay from the daily rate that the substitutes normally get. We established a comparable take-home salary that we thought was competitive, so we could continue to recruit quality folks, and we will actually be continuing to do the recruiting of these long-term substitutes and then sending them to SDS and recommending that SDS hire them and place them within our school district. We have an estimate of $175,000 savings from the salary difference alone, knowing that these folks are not going to be paying PSERs, and we won't be paying their share of PSERs as well. And there's some future potential major savings within the implementation of the Affordable Health Care Act. This was a group of people that we were concerned could put us in a situation where we may have to look at penalties because we were getting to the point where we had a percentage of our staff that we were not offering health care to. So the alternative is either offer those folks health care or not, and perhaps get involved with the penalty. Specifics on the tuition reimbursement caps, year 1. The cap, we have a historical average of about $280,000 that we spend almost religiously, at least over the past 3 years. I think that goes beyond that. We're going to be setting the cap in year 1 at $260,000, the cap in year 2 at $250,000, year 3 $240,000, and year 4 $230,000. We're estimating savings approximately of $140,000 over the life of the contract because of this piece alone. We are going to have to establish a joint committee with the Methacton Education Association to establish how those funds are going to be dispersed, because we do anticipate there's going to be quite a few people that will not be able to avail themselves of that because of the fact that we are limiting that tuition reimbursement. Okay, salary year one. They're going to move, our teachers will move full step halfway through the year, and then the people at the top will not obviously move. They will receive $1,000. Year two, there will be no step movement, but 1.5% will be added to the salary schedule, and the folks at the top will then receive $1,000 as well. Year three, they will move again, but again, it will be halfway through the school year, and the top step will receive $750. And again, no step movement in the final year of the contract, but we will be adding 1.5% to the salary schedule, and the top will receive $749. All extra duty and supplemental positions, i.e. coaches, coordinators, mentors, et cetera, will all be frozen at the current rate for the 4-year life of the contract. I don't have to read all the percentages up there. You can see what we're doing with healthcare. Year one is basically no change from where we are right now. We are in the consortium, but we're going to be migrating to their preferred plans in year two. So you'll see a change in the plan. The Keystone POS will no longer be available, nor will the PC-15. And we're going to be adjusting the percentages accordingly. 1020-70 is one of the preferred plans of the consortium. Worked out well for us because most of our folks are on there, so are most of the folks in the consortium. So the 1020-70 will hold up. That will go up to 13% in the last year, as will the 20-30-70 goes up to 12%, and the Keystone POS will be at 10%. And we've got salary percentages gross. We did the gross year to year, 1.9% year one, year two is 3.27. 1.94 in year three, 3.04 for an average of 2.55. But when we calculate the tuition reimbursement, the savings, and the long-term substitutes, we come up with a actual net cost in year one of 1.33, 2.61 in year two, 1.27 in year three, and 2.17 in year four, for a total average per year of 1.84. A few other changes. The work year is being reduced from 191 to 190. That's a little misleading. Last 2 years actually have been 190. The contract reverted the day after, I guess it was June 29th to June 30th. It went back to 191. We hadn't used a 191 school year for the last 2 years, so it's going to be 190 again for the length of the contract. We had to make some mandated changes to the evaluation language. The language has changed and the process has changed via state law, so we had to make those changes, and we've added one more certification that's available for national board certification, and that is occupational therapist. And that is really the crux of the agreement.
Any questions for Mr. Harney? Mr. Whiteweather, are you going to continue, or did?
I think he was just there for moral support, if I'm
Okay.
not mistaken.
He was helping me. He was
You pretty much
he was
summed
my
it up.
able-bodied assistant this evening.
It doesn't do much for my performance evaluation of your performance, but
I spoke enough during Finance Committee.
did he? Yeah, okay. All right, well, I'll make note.
Any comments? Mr. Jones?
First, the salary schedule. And I don't quibble with the numbers that have come up as far as savings and all that, but the salary schedule that we have, one of our major problems is the bump step arrangement in the salary schedule between 13, 14, 14 and 15, and down a little bit further between like 10 and 11. This, for a long-term, on a long-term basis, this contract makes all that worse. All right, or worse, I guess, is one term. But the differences between the bump steps is now greater. It is much greater between 14 and 15 than it was, because we've added 3,400 and change to that, while only updating the other ones by about 3%. So there's a substantial difference there. On a long-term basis, as your population of student or teachers move through this thing, and you get more and more moving to the top, you're going to experience some issues from a budgeting standpoint because you're going to have a lot of money up there and a lot of people. In fact, based on the current structure, we could probably have in the first, after this contract's over, in the first year after this contract over, you could have about 50% of your people sitting at the top step. Now that assumes everybody stays and you don't lose anybody and all that garbage. So some of this is short-term gain, but we're presenting ourselves with somewhat of a longer-term issue. And that is, as long as everybody feels that's okay, that's okay. But the teachers, in my estimation, have not given up that much. There is no year where they do not get a raise. And when you look at the thing, the way it plays out, you know, there's just not, I mean, it's a pretty good deal for them, really. And we're getting something, we're allowing ourselves to get the LTSs or the long-term subs out of there, and there is a cost to that. But there are issues with looking at that have some ramifications, such as we can hire our own people, that doesn't mean we can get them back necessarily. Most of this is based on using 25 long-term subs in a year, and as our staff declines and that type of thing, that may not be up there. We do save on the PSERs, we do save on workman's comp, we do save on all of that stuff, and that's very worthwhile. But I just think this really looks very nice on the short term, but I have long-term concerns.
Any other comments? Howard's right about the steps. However, during the course of negotiations, that was our first option. That was what the board had decided that they wanted to address initially. And when we attempted to do that, it was absolutely turned down. There was no option going forward with that. So whereas that's the truth, it just wasn't, it was never going to be an actuality. I also agree with him that this is a good contract for the teachers, but this is also a good contract for the district, and it's also a good contract for the community. I think this is a total win-win.
What does the rest of the committee, the people that were on the committee?
Well, after going, since the committee really never went into formal negotiations, a lot of the work was done over, I don't know, how many months?
We didn't go into formal
No,
negotiations.
we never did. So it went over, I don't know how many months.
5 or 6.
5 or 6 months, and, we went into this. And we got a directive from the board of what we were going to do and what limits we were going to follow and things like that. And I agree with Howard, because as you have teachers moving up through the schedule, they're all going to be sitting at the top, okay? But at one point, then they hit the top, and that's it. No more
But they
room
didn't,
for-
that isn't it here. They're getting money every year.
They get that in these four
You're raising the base by $3,400 or more.
Oh, I'm well aware of the base. But the more importantly is, looking ahead as far as how the PSERS rates are going to go, the healthcare, the Affordable Act. A lot of the stuff that we talked about, we tried to stay within the guidelines of what we had set, okay, by what the board had set. And I feel that we accomplished that goal. I believe it is a very good offer for the teachers. I believe that also it's good for the district because it controls these costs for 4 years. We now know what to expect, within the exceptions of course, some of the variables that we just don't. No one knows how many things are going to come up between now and then. But I think one of the things you have to look at is you're looking at a contract that needed to be done. I think it is an affordable one for the school district. I think we can do it, and it keeps things going for the next 4 years. To that end, I agree with Howard that something has to be done regarding the bump steps. My whole thing is the whole salary schedule together has to be worked on. And I would charge the board and whatever boards come after this to start working on that now with the teachers union. I mean, they clearly were not ready to work with that during any talk or any mention of that. And that's where it lies. And Howard, isn't that where it lies? That we need to work with this schedule.
And that may be, but my opinion is we lost the window. We had the economy, we had a lot of things sitting there, and there's the window of opportunity is, if not closed, darn close to it. Whether they rejected it or not, whether we started it at the right level, whether we could have done something differently to get things off the ground, I don't know.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, we have a problem in that salary schedule. It's going to remain there, and you're not going to fix it anytime soon. So, is this looking pretty good for 4 years? Yeah, if all that savings come about and we, all that works, it's not bad. But somebody's going to face it in year 5, 6, and 7. That's the issue.
And that's why,
And who's to say that there won't be an opportunity at that time? We have no idea what's going to happen in 4 years. This is what had to be done now.
well, and I also think that you have,
Wanted to do now, not necessarily what had to be done.
Well,
I mean,
Well,
yeah,
what
that's
does-
a difference of opinion.
Who else was on the committee?
Maria,
Maria.
What is your opinion of?
My opinion is that I thought, first of all, that there should have been more involvement from the whole board. I guess that everything was informal. So basically, we were never in the negotiations. But I also thought from, what we were told, as far as the savings from the healthcare that was coming up, and from Joyce going in and meeting with them, some of the things we wanted, they were like not moving on anything. This is what they wanted, and I thought at the time, I guess it's the best deal that we could get.
and sure, I would have liked to seen more contributions from the MEA on things, particularly with the healthcare. I thought the percentage increases were a little bit low. But, it's all about give and take, and, they did contribute more, although I would have liked to seen those numbers go up. That's the only reserve I had. About putting $1,000 in the top of the schedule, that number is a little bit high for what I would like to, but again, I gave it a little bit. And, put it this way, the gains, the long-term gains will be received by this district. I really feel that will happen. And I think that, we need to really start working. I said this the last time we were going through teacher contracts 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, however long it was, that you needed to start working on that salary schedule, but it fell into deaf ears. We tried to attempt to it this time, same result. So I just think you have to have a change in how things are done. Now, if you're saying, okay, we need to fix the salary schedule, okay, what do you do about it? I heard that you said we need to do this, you need to fix the bumps, but what do we do? You basically blow the thing up and start over from zero? I mean, I don't,
And this is an academic exercise right now. It doesn't make any difference. There are ways to go about doing all of those things. We never got to formal negotiations because we were following another path. Because we didn't get to formal negotiations and it was deemed that they weren't going to move, we decided to follow another path. So you're not going to do that. You're never going to get to that without spending the time to do it, number one, and you need a longer runway to do it. And I don't think you'll ever do it unless you get into formal, because the informal stuff just doesn't handle it. So the path has been carved out. I mean, that you're beyond facing that now, and I don't know that you'll ever face it.
and I don't know that it'll ever be truly faced.
Well, unless somebody, unless somebody takes action and decides that's what they want to do, and that's what they're going to do, and put the effort into it, then it won't get done. All
Well,
right?
I think then what you need is a unanimous decision by the board to tell that to your negotiations team, the future negotiations team, that whatever it is for 4 years from now, to do that and say.
The negotiation team was told to do that, and we tried it, and like Howard said, it didn't work, and we came back to the board.
Well-
You know the negotiating team didn't do anything that didn't have the full support.
Oh, of course, and we reported everything to the board, but what I'm saying is that, as Howard states, we chose the path of informal negotiations, which is fine, it worked, because it hammered out a lot of things. But if you're going to attack the salary schedule head-on, the only way you're suggesting to do it is through formal negotiations, so
And
you
if you
bypass
attack the
that.
salary schedule head-on, you also are going to have to attack the other side of it. What are we going to have to give up?
Exactly.
For that? So it's got to be a two-sided,
And
and it'll be a
you
lot.
need a lot of time to do that.
It'll be
You
a
guys
lot.
are starting negotiations. We're
Yeah,
Anyway.
I think I would
But I mean,
Anyway.
I would caution you
Bring it
about
up.
talking too much strategy of
Right.
negotiations in
But what-
public. I think that would be safe for private. I would just like to say, I think there's a lot of what everybody said is correct here. I think Howard's right. I think if you're going to go after the salary schedule, it has to, and I think you're right, it has to be a priority. I think you need a much longer ramp
Yeah.
if you're going to do that. And I think it's a strategy you have to discuss privately before you meet with the union. But enough said. I think everything you all said is right. You have to put it all together into a process.
Any other comments? There being none, we'll move on to item 6, the Methacton High School baseball field.
Just an update, I laid a plan over there. It doesn't look any different than the baseball field now, but I laid it over there. Kids want to look at it. Mascaro is continuing to move ahead with this. He has, John March, who is Mascaro's engineer, has met with the Board of Supervisors Monday, September 9th, I believe. And they discussed with him the process, or that their decision, that they're going to consider the entire project in terms of waivers rather than variances, with the exception of the scoreboard. Scoreboard is going to have to go in front of the zoning hearing board for a variance. At that point, Frank or someone from Frank's firm will go along, and either I or Dr. Zerbe will go as a person of standing, and we'll seek a variance for the scoreboard because it's an internally lit scoreboard, as lighted lights. Everything else is going to be treated as a waiver because it's all setback issues that we already have waivers for, or fence heights that we already have waivers for, so they're going to deal with that. And you can see what's going. They're planning to grant some of those waivers, I believe, fairly soon, telling him that sometime in October they thought he could get started. We will sit down and talk with him about that because we want to be careful how they get started. Paul Spiewak and I are going to meet with the field hockey coach next week just to assure her that if she sees some orange fence out there, it doesn't mean they're losing their field. He's going to start with the dugouts and those things that aren't interfering with either the bleachers or the field or any part of it that the field hockey team uses. And as we move along, we've been very clear with Mascaro that partly his work is going to be tied in with whatever happens with the turf fields, because if the turf fields don't move, then we still need that field hockey field. So he can't put his fence across that corner. We still need to have that field hockey field. Paul and I have looked at it. If we stop the fence at a certain point, they'll still have enough room for everything and still play as they do now. If the turf field moves ahead, obviously, then that's where the field hockey program will move to. But for now, we told him he needs to keep that field. He's not touching the outfield at all at this point. Everything is going to remain as is. Eventually, they're going to replace the entire infield, the dugouts, and all the fencing. Permanent fencing in the outfield, permanent fencing behind the plate, and mesh fencing, high mesh fencing to protect the tennis courts, basically what they're doing. So, and then fence heights out in the outfield to, I think, I don't remember if it was a 325-foot home run or a 350. I don't remember, but one of those. They're going to set the fence height so that it does that for us, so we don't have guys running up the hill trying to catch a ball anymore. So that's where the baseball field is. Just wanted to keep you updated. Mascaro has indicated that his company, doesn't want any particular recognition for this donation, although it is a sizable donation, but in return for the donation, they want us to name the field after a fellow by the name of Childress, a young man who was a Methacton grad, good baseball player, went to Vietnam at the age of 19 and was killed by a rocket 2 months into his tour of duty over there. Fine young man who was killed, and he would like us to name the field after him, and for a donation of what looks to be $100 and some thousand, I think. We told them the board had said they would certainly consider that. So that's the baseball field up there.
Can I ask one question about that? I know it's going to be done in phases in case the turf field thing. Are they going to level the field because there's a drop-off in the outfield and work on the drainage
They are
as well?
eventually going to fill some of those areas. Right now, there are some areas right outside the infield that are sunken, and they're sunken mainly because we squeegee all the water off there, and the water lays there and they're sunken. They eventually are going to fix that. They're not going to do that while we still may need field hockey because they have to kind of expand the area a little bit to fix it, so they're going to wait till that's done. But eventually they're going to level that, yes.
But not for this season, is what you're saying? It'll be
Right.
later when we find out about our turf?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, if the turf fields move more quickly and it looks like they'll be in for the fall, then they'll work on that before the spring baseball season, but chances are that'll come later.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions on the baseball field? Okay, I'm going to skip down to item 7.15, PSBA officer elections. In the past, the election of officers have taken place at the annual meeting in October in Harrisburg, I guess it is. This year, they've changed the process, and each board member had a vote. This year, what they're doing is each school entity has a vote, so each board has to reach consensus on each individual so that we cast one vote for each individual. They also required that this be done in public and that there be discussion about it in public. So we put it on this evening agenda, and the people that we will be voting for President-elect, you have the choice of voting either for William S. Lacoste from the O.N.J. Roberts School District or Mark Miller from the Centennial School District. For Vice President, Larry Breach from Millville Area School District or Charles Ballard from the East Penn School District. Treasurer, Norman G. Hasbrook from the California Area School District or Otto Voigt from Muhlenberg. And then our at-large representative is, the two candidates are either Maura Burry from Upper Merion or Robert Schwartz from Wallenpaupack. I know you've all seen the bios on this, or you've had the opportunity to go and read their bios. You've seen who's been endorsed by the current sitting committee, and that endorsement only means that they determine this individual to be qualified, not that they determine him to be better or that they determine the other to be not qualified. So those are the four votes that we have to cast next week. I'll be asking you to do that next week. Is there any discussion on this?
I guess I have a question. When you say 4 votes, do we vote on the at-large representative who does not represent us?
No.
We do not.
I double-checked that today and went onto the PSBA website, and we can only vote, in fact, the wording is, an entity may cast a vote only for an at-large position for the section of the state to which it is assigned.
Okay.
So you
So
can
the
cross
first
off
four,
the...
So
yeah,
5 and 6, you...
5 and 6 are no.
Can you tell us who's endorsed? Refresh our memory.
Yeah. Under President-elect, William Lacoste has been endorsed. Under Vice President, Charles Ballard has been endorsed. Both candidates under Treasurer have been endorsed, and Robert Schwartz under our at-large rep has been endorsed. Bless you.
Thank you.
Bless you.
And who endorses it?
That's the sitting committee
That's right.
that's currently the president and the vice president, the current board. And any other,
Let me, refresh, why does that matter?
that they're endorsed?
Yeah.
I frankly don't think it does.
But it
but-
doesn't, I just was curious.
But I just wanted to,
Well, it's like, I'm not saying they're not qualified, but the other guy's qualified, is basically what they
and
said.
they're not saying he's more qualified, they're just saying that they've deemed this person to be qualified.
Isn't the other person qualified too?
And they're not saying the other person, in their opinion, is not qualified, just that that person is qualified.
That's ridiculous.
It is.
That's absolutely
But
ridiculous.
I just wanted to explain the asterisk.
It's not that you're not qualified, but this guy is more qualified than others. It's
In our
like, it's like
opinion.
animal, was it farm, whatever it is, Some pigs are more equal than others.
Well, particularly when the two who are not endorsed and the president and the vice president are sitting in that position, correct?
Well, the one who's running for president-elect is the first vice president, and Mark Miller is on the board, but he's running for president-elect, he's the first vice president. I know.
So that position's going away.
And that position is
So they're going to get rid of
going
first and
away.
second, it's going to be
Correct.
vice president,
Right.
so.
It's
Add to
politics, I
the-
think.
Vote for Maura.
Do you know her?
Yes.
Okay,
She's at the IU. She's very good. She's in Upper Marion. Vote
It's
for her.
local.
That's what I would like to vote for someone that's local.
Local, yeah.
Yeah, but that's just my opinion.
The rest of them, I don't know.
Okay, well, that's a good endorsement, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so we will be asking you to vote on these next week. Other non-voting conversations that I'd like to have, if I can find my notes on that, is, I've talked with Dr. Miller and with Dr. Zerbe and with Mike over there, Michael, about returning our work session to the high school. This has worked out very nicely at the table where we can face each other and have discussion, but the changing in locations has been problematic for some. And so this way, if you're going to a board meeting, you're going to the high school. And Michael has indicated that he can arrange the tables so that it won't be a table conversation like this, but we'll be able to see each other, which
We're
would...
closer, we'll have a U more than a table, a U.
So, just want to throw that out, see how you guys feel about that, so that we can, if you do agree with that they will go ahead and do that starting in October. Do you have any comments?
I personally like this format for this
So do I.
meeting.
The high school is better for presentations, that I can tell you. This is not a good stuff.
But generally, it suits the needs. If we look, it's typically, 10, 20, 30 people. I don't know that we've ever had a situation more than that.
We don't ever do M awards at work sessions, right? So we won't have to worry about that kind of...
We usually do them
that
at the
regular
regular
meetings.
meetings.
So we won't have to worry about a big crowd for
Well, I
that.
think it's fine if you want to move to the high school, but I think Mark's right. If we can keep a situation like this, it seems very,
Well, it won't be a table, but what they're going to do is move the end tables in and make it more of
Squeeze
a
everything
U.
in and make it more of a U, so you're facing each other.
Pardon my
more
ignorance here.
conversational.
Yeah, pardon my ignorance here, because I don't have any kids in the high school yet, but are those tables set up continuously? Are they up there right now?
Yes.
Okay, so they're up there all the time. So finding 4 tables like this to put them in there and to make it a situation like this is just not doable?
Well, we could take those tables and put them in there.
Just move them.
Move them around to some type of shape like this. I personally like the configuration of what
Interaction.
the
It's worked, I
interaction.
think.
Yeah, it's worked. I think it's opened up the board a lot. Location, it doesn't matter to me at all. And I agree with Dr. Miller, presentation-wise, it would be easier. And plus, where everything is. It's always, the board meeting is at the high school,
Yep.
But I do want to preserve this layout for the work sessions. I think we've been able to get a lot of good work done here.
I agree.
Does the change or do the problems have anything to do with sound or videoing or acoustics or none of it?
No, we just thought it'd be easier
Do that everywhere.
and we thought for presentation purposes. And we know we've had people go to the high school when they should have come here.
So now you've got us used to coming here, you're going to switch it again.
Yeah, we're gonna pull the road right up, Andy. If there's no objections, why don't we give it a shot?
Give it a shot.
If it doesn't
All
work,
right.
then
Why
we can
can't you
always
move
come
back?
back.
We can always try it.
Does that work?
I don't, I
All right.
We'll do the October meetings over there, and if you want to come back here the following month, do it.
Okay. And also on the topic of meetings, our November meetings are scheduled, as all other meetings, for the third and fourth Tuesday of the month. The third Tuesday would be right before Thanksgiving, and then the very following Tuesday night, we have our reorg. I'm sorry, the fourth Tuesday is right before Thanksgiving, it's the Tuesday night before Thanksgiving, and then the very following Monday night, December 3rd, we have to have our reorganization. So we'd have 3 meetings in a row, 3 weeks in a row. So what I was suggesting was that we move the meeting schedules up to the second and third Tuesdays, as we did for Memorial Day, have a week, and then have a reorg meeting.
So the reorg would be when?
The reorg's going to stay, it has to be.
It'll stay on the
Has to
third.
be
It has to
first
stay
week
on
in
the
December.
third.
You have to do it before the end of the first week.
By law, you have to do it the first week of the...
You're talking about the 12th of November
Yes.
and the 19th?
12th
Yes.
and
I
9th.
thought we've already moved them up to those dates.
I might have misspoke today when we had our policy meeting.
You know, I guess I already had it written down on the calendar.
Then Maria has...
It'll be there.
I had the 12th and
She's
19th
good.
on my calendar, I already moved them.
Well, no, because I said, are we going to have the policy meeting
Oh,
the
that's
same
right.
day?
Right.
And that's,
Because we were talking
Yes.
about.
So you can have it in front of, the day of the regular board meeting instead of the day of the work session, and not move your policy committee meeting.
I think we already moved it.
Oh, you did?
Well, we moved everything. Like I said, I already had those 2 dates down.
Okay, so then if there's no objection to that, we'll have Donna go ahead and advertise that, and so make sure you get your calendars right. We'll remind you. And that's all I had for, even though that we're going to be voting on that next week, we need to have a discussion on it this week. We're going to move on to voting items. These are items that we will be voting on next week. We'll be voting on the board minutes from August 20th, the special meeting, and the work session, and then the regular board meeting on the 27th. Do you want to take fiscal items?
I'll do these.
Oh, you're going to do all of them?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I'm going to turn personnel over to.
Okay.
We'll have the list of bills, we'll have the treasurer's report, and we will grant the class of 2017 student activity status, which allows them to raise funds. And then under fiscal items, we'll present to you the ratification of the terms of the collective bargaining agreement for your ratification. Then I'll let Bob run through it. The September meeting is always heavy on
Yes.
personnel stuff, so we'll let Bob take over for about 10 minutes.
Sit back.
Yeah.
And I'll go through this a little different than I do the night of the voting. I want to talk about some of this. Christian Stam was our instructional assistant for driver's ed. He has resigned, so we're looking to fill that position. That's an important position for us to fill. Very difficult to fill because it's an instructional assistant and it comes with special certifications that are necessary to teach on the road. Fortunately, I don't know how, I just got a few applications of people that seem to be qualified, so
Wow.
anyways,
Wow.
till you check out who they are, I just...
We were worried about that.
I'm holding my breath.
Yeah, yeah.
That might be good. Under personal employment classified, we have 12 of those, 10 of which are pretty standard fare replacement positions. I did want to talk about something because we haven't done this in quite a while. We're adding new positions. There are 2 new positions being added, both of which are a result of extensive increases in our early intervention population that we've been getting from the intermediate unit and kids that are very involved in.
These are the personal
and need
care
some- need some
assistants we
support.
talked to you about before that we said it could be up to 4.
So right now it's 2.
And do we think there'll be more, or is that it?
It's possible some of these kids need specialized services, so the special ed department has gone with an agency
Okay.
person. So at this point, I'm not sure if we're going to be hiring any more or not.
Okay.
2 long-term substitute classified, long-term substitute positions, nothing unusual there, nothing unusual under personnel employment. Really nothing unusual for the rest of these. I do want to highlight that I think as of 4 o'clock this afternoon, we had all of our coaches hired. You'll see that we hired on the next page, JV soccer, and also cheerleading for Arcola. So as of my knowledge, as of 4 o'clock today, we are completely staffed halfway through the fall season. So, that's always a challenge because you get the resignations you're not ready for, and then trying to fill some of those positions is difficult. And really nothing unusual for the rest of the personnel items at all. Any questions on any personnel items?
That'll take us to 7.12, which is programs, gifts, and donations. There are 2 of them. $500 gift from BJ's Wholesale Club for Woodland Elementary School, and $726 from the Education Foundation that's being used to purchase, has been used to purchase a refrigerator for the concession stand at the football stadium. The refrigerator died a couple weeks ago, so they bought a new one. Under programs, we have the Main Exchange Program. We've done this before. Arcola Intermediate School's participation in the Main Exchange Program for 13-14. The next sentence should say Arcola student travel. Wait till I show Donna that one. Donna, you're watching the video. That's going to occur April 30th to May 4th, and the costs are borne by the students, but we approve their travel. Calendar revision is actually dependent on the collective bargaining agreement. If you ratify the collective bargaining agreement, that bounces the work year down from 191 days to 190, and that means a day needs to be eliminated, and we would change what was the May 20th in-service day to a district-wide holiday for students and teachers. So if the collective bargaining agreement is ratified, then the calendar needs to be revised to match the collective bargaining agreement, and that's the date that we would use. And then we're down to PSBL for elections again.
Which we've already talked about.
If you want to talk about them again, you can talk about them.
Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Miller?
Yes, can I make a request? That 20th date is in the middle of the week. I think I had asked about that before because it was an in-service day and you prefer to put them in the middle of the week. If we change this, can we move that to add on to a weekend instead of having it as a Tuesday?
Could we move it to a Friday?
Make it, well, we already have a Friday and a Monday. That's Memorial Day weekend. Can
Oh,
we
that's
make
Memorial
it?
Day. We can move it to Thursday.
So
Or move
basically,
it somewhere else?
because you're going to have the kids in on Monday, off Tuesday, in Wednesday, Thursday.
I mean, that's a lot for parents to have to prepare.
Sticking with the
Is that
other 2 days
election
you have
day? The
off.
Is
reason
that
we wanted
election
to
day?
do it on that Tuesday is because it's election.
It might be
election
election.
day?
That's
Oh, is that
election
why?
day. That's why we did it.
Okay, forget what I just
So
said.
forget that.
That's not a great
Good
policy.
idea, though.
Sounded good, didn't it?
We're just headed to the shore on Wednesday night.
Now it's coming back to me. We did talk about that, but that's the reason we like to have the buildings closed on election day.
Thank goodness Angela's here.
No, I can't take credit. I overheard Janina took credit.
Thank goodness Janine is here.
Okay, any other questions for Dr. Miller?
Yeah, Bob thought he said.
All right, Bob, thank you.
You guys can talk about this among yourselves.
We're also going to have a presentation I would just add for you on the 24th. The high school, you may remember, was going to build a climbing wall. We've moved away from that for lots of reasons, not the least of which is cost and having to fence that in. And they've moved to using that funding instead to establish a low ropes course down in the wooded area behind the high school that they already use for adventure-based ed. They're going to be here to present that to you, to show you what that would look like. We've been working with an installer, and we've been talking to them about it. It's actually going to cost less than the climbing wall is going to cost, and I think they'll get a whole lot more use out of it. I've had experience with those courses at a couple of school districts now, and they are really much more flexible, much more usable for phys ed classes than the climbing wall is, and very good, I would add, for special education youngsters. We used them extensively at my last district for special education youngsters. Very good for confidence building and those kind of things for kids. So that presentation is going to occur on the 24th.
Any other questions for Dr. Miller? Any new business? There being none, courtesy of the floor. Mr. Andrews.
Yes. Because we have a presentation.
John Andrews, Lower Providence. This evening I'm going to talk to the subject of It's for the Children. And this evening, we got a fair amount of detail on the proposed MEA contract. I say proposed because the board has yet to vote on that. Nothing has been said publicly on a number of issues. Flat PSSA scores, AYP issues, an obsolete phrase this week, low inflation, low pay in the private sector, ideas to tax the Marcellus Shale to allow for richer teacher salary and benefits, as Diane Kernoff suggested to you this year. Implicit is, it's for the children. That's the line President Obama used when 400 children were among the 1,400 gassed to death last month in Syria. That, after 2 years of civil war, 100,000 deaths, devastation in wide areas, and 2 million refugees in other countries due to another Ba'athist in control. So that's a case of where it's for the children missed most of the problem. So I'm tired of politicians such as President Obama, and even the majority of our school directors saying any amount of money is okay to spend because it's for the children. House Bill 76 seeks to correct property tax inequities, perhaps either as an end run of union demands or desire to avoid issues with school board control of finances. So perhaps passing it can be a good change to it's for the children. Here in Methacton, 50 to 60 home foreclosures each year, suing to raise assessments on businesses, and an empty factory where Vistion once had 1,000 employees send the wrong message to homeowners and employers. We see sparse and slow home sales, little new construction, and multiples of idle buildings. Somehow I think Lower Providence and Worcester are not as well off as they used to be. And that should be reflected in how money is spent in the public sector as well as in each home, or many of the homes. Sunday's Times Herald had an article about It's for the Children by Mr. Loman Henry. And he says that the political left uses the It's for the Children card when rational arguments fail. Also, as I've said previously, there are serious funding issues in Pennsylvania for roads, bridges, welfare, and health costs. For the overall health of Methacton residents, I firmly believe this proposed MEA contract is too generous and requires rejection. You should go out and get some guts. We must economize by trimming the biggest expense, that's instruction cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Any other comments? Ms. Alba?
Candy Alba, Eagleville. Howard, thank you. I agree with what Howard had to say tonight. I know it'll surprise you. But as far as the teachers...
My nitro clothes.
I forgot to smell exhaust tonight for you. The MEA contract. I know you talked about health care. The Affordable Health Care Act at this point right now is a moving target. This thing changes from day to day to day. People are opting in and out. No one really knows what's going on with health care. So I don't know how that's going to reflect in the budget, in the contract. But you have a teacher's contract that expired June 30th. Their list was submitted in August. You're talking about tonight, you're going to vote next week. The board seems happy with it, the teachers are happy with it. You're letting out one core subject matter, and that's the taxpayers. They're completely in the dark about this. Now, the teachers think it's great. I mean, they're getting what they want. But the taxpayers are doing the heavy lifting here. They're footing the bill for this. And I know it's for the students, but like John said, that argument gets a little old. Why is the rush? Why is there a rush to push this contract through? We have a new superintendent that's starting in less than in a month. He should be involved in this. This contract should be decided. This is the man who's going to have to lead this school district for 4 years with this teacher's contract. Now, in the paper today, We got a waiver on AYP. They're putting in a new program. And part of that program to assess the school districts is teachers' performance and administrators' performances. How is that going to factor in the new contract? Was that thought of in the new contract? If we have a teacher that is failing in the next 2 years and not performing the way they should, can we get rid of them, or do we keep paying them? There is people in this school district that have lost their homes. They're still losing their homes. I was out today and saw a fair number of empty homes. There's people who have lost their jobs, haven't gotten raises in the last 4 years, have lost their health care, and I speak from experience. And to sit down and see you hand the keys to the kingdom to the teachers with no public discussion, no open board discussion, no negotiation, nothing formally done, I think that is disgraceful. That's a slap to the taxpayers. And like I said, we have a new superintendent coming on board shortly. He should be directly involved in this, and he should not be shut out on this. And I would seriously consider putting this out to the public, putting everything, whether it's in the newspaper, on the website, because people I spoke to in the last couple weeks didn't even know there was any discussion about teachers' contract. So you're shutting us taxpayers out, and that's an insult to us. And you really should reconsider what you're doing here.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Alaba?
Kyle Alaba, Eagleville. The thing with the teacher's contract that I don't know, it doesn't sit right with me the most, is the fact that there hasn't been any formal negotiations. The MEA didn't like the steps, from what I understand, and you went a different path. From the way I see it, I could be wrong, you guys kind of did negotiation by proxy. You had the group go out, tell MEA what they wanted, MEA told you what they wanted, and you sort of came up with something from that. You're not exactly negotiating for what the board wants. The teacher said they didn't want something, and you just said okay, threw your hands up and said okay. And the steps seem to like a problem that is going to come in 4 years, and is going to be something that the board probably 2 to 3 years from now is going to complain about. The steps are costing us money. Now, if you want to fix that problem, you do it now. You don't rush this contract through September before Dr. Zerbe takes on the board and just say you're done with it. This is something, if you want something fixed in it and you have a problem with it now, you should fix it now and not hold it off, because you say, all right, we could do it 4 years from now, but you won't. It'll be forgotten again, and you'll say it's going to be procrastination. It's going to be the same problem every 4 years, and that's honestly the way I see it right now. If you have a problem with the contract right now, fix it right now. Don't hold it off, or it's going to bite you later. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Bob Fleming. I've been a resident of Lower Providence since 1969. I'd like to take a macro view of the overall problem. First of all, I think you need a long-term strategic plan, both financial and physical plan. I was shocked at a meeting a while ago. There's no 5-year capital and an operating budget plan. I think we're headed for a crisis here. I heard somebody say earlier that everything's okay because we're locked in for 4 years. But if I recall the numbers, I haven't looked at them since the last meeting I was at, before the tax increase, you had about a $2 million budget deficit. On top of that, you were pulling $5 million in from reserve funds. You had a $7 million budget deficit. The pension costs, I believe, are in the paper, go up over $1 million a year. So the next 5 years is another $5 million. So 5 years from now, you're going to have $12 million in operating costs, taking out the one-time pull from the reserve fund. So you're running at about a 12% deficit, and that's assuming that everything goes according to plan. Now, I was glad to hear the concerns of some of the board members about operating costs. And I have to hand it to the board, because I think you're between a rock and a hard place. You've heard a lot of this problem. In the old days, teachers didn't make much. They got whatever they wanted in pensions and health care benefits, and the thing has kind of snowballed. And you have a part-time board with a subcommittee that it's using their best efforts to negotiate a contract, and you are up against, and I was working with unions for over 40 years, you're up against a well-organized, well-funded bunch of thugs. Okay, I dealt in Las Vegas with the culinary workers, and a lot of unions all over the place. You're dealing with a very tough group of people, and they don't give ground. I disagree with Madam Chairman who says you have to give something to get something. No, you draw the line. I don't want to sound like Obama. You draw the line and say, this is where we stand. Now, my other problem is, and I pay taxes in 7 school districts, so I know this is not the highest paying school district. I understand the average teacher makes $79,000 a year. If I was starting a school, I sure in heck would not pay anybody $79,000 a year to teach. On top of that, they get the best health care plan you can get, and a pension plan. I think they get 2.5% for every year that they work, so they can get up to 90% of their salary in retirement. That is insane. As this lady said before, people out here are starving and they're hurting. They don't even have jobs. So the teachers have become royalty. And compared to any industry average, the teachers are overpaid. Plus, their job has, as I said before, has no employment risk. They can't be fired. They can't be transferred except within the district. The schools are going to go out of business and lay everybody off. There's zero employment risk. I say you start the war now. It is a war. You have to understand you're dealing with unions. It is a war. I was president of a psychiatric hospital, 3rd shift, nursing supervisor shoved downstairs. The medical director's life was threatened. The director of nurses' tires were slashed. So behind the scenes, that's what you're dealing with. So I'm telling you folks, this is a war, and you have to take this to the public. Now, it bothers me when teachers who live in my neighborhood get home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, have a half-acre of ground cut by 4 o'clock, and I never left my office before 6 p.m. or even thought of calling home to saying when I would be home. We're paying them too much, and we have to draw the line. We have to start cutting back. I say you shake the daylights out of the union and you reject the contract and you go back to the bargaining table. Thank you.
Thank you. You certainly are entitled to your opinion, sir, but I really have to take issue with you referring to the teachers of our district as thugs.
I've had some dealings with some of those people.
Anybody else? With that, do I have a motion for adjournment? Mr. Nascimento, do I have a second? Mr. Roth, all in favor? We're adjourned. We will be meeting in executive session in room 401.
Just around to the left.
Thank you.